Good morning, everybody. I wanted to share why Mum was so special to me. She truly was the best mother for me and a blessing from God. Her love started even before I was born. Mum and Dad were both hoping for a daughter to join the family after welcoming Gary more than 4 years earlier. Each birthday, Mum would tell me how happy she was to find out that she was pregnant and really hoped for a girl. Mum would say, "I somehow knew you were you, and I was so happy when the nurse told me I had a daughter," while giving me a hug and kiss. I can remember Mum telling me this each year from about 5 years old, so I've been blessed with annual reminders of how much I was wanted. She would follow on to say, "The boys are special too, of course." I quickly became a daddy's girl, especially when Harold joined the family just 14 months after I was born. But Mum was my primary caregiver. Her nurture and love became even more important when I was slow to walk and would lose balance easily. I was taken for lots of assessments, even after being diagnosed with cerebral palsy on the left side. I did not like being poked and inspected by people in white coats. Mum would always allow me to have a treat to make the experience sweeter. I started having regular physiotherapy, and Mum would always encourage me to do my best with the exercises. When I said, "I can't," Mum would say, "You don't know until you try, and even if you can't do everything, it is important to just do your best." Because of her and Dad's persistence, I was able to walk without aids, though gymnastics never has been a strong point. I was able to remind Mum of her words and encourage her when she needed physio after her mini stroke in August 2020 and her last surgery in November 2021. To her credit, Mum did do her best and continued to try to rebuild her strength until she wore out. Mum was kind, caring, loving, and compassionate to everyone. She valued those traits in others and never took them for granted. As a family, we have been touched by the memories and thoughts shared by people she met throughout her long life. Mum brought out the best in people because she loved and listened to them and was always authentic. Mum really enjoyed cooking and gardening. Together with Dad, she created wonderful flower and vegetable gardens around each home they lived in. Their homegrown tomatoes and sweet corn were just the best. As children, we were always willing workers. We were not always willing workers on their organic patch, but we grew to appreciate that good things do take time and work and bring personal reward and satisfaction. Mum and Dad really enjoyed creating the gardens at Middle Dural, which were a loved and peaceful haven to the last. And they had 5 acres to play with, so it was a big patch. Mum was a wonderful cook and baker. Her green bean soup remains a family favourite, but every meal was delicious, and her sponge cakes would rise to triple height, truly fluffy and light as a feather. A special birthday treat unless a different request was made. We also got to take turns choosing the special Sabbath meal and sweet that Mum would prepare each Friday afternoon. From about the age of 8, Mum encouraged me to learn from her and to try out recipes that looked good. I also loved baking and cooking, so we had many fun times together in the kitchen. Mum was very hospitable and enjoyed cooking for a crowd. She had learnt to cook for her own extended family and also the host family she stayed with in Switzerland, who ran a vegetarian restaurant as well as the family farm. Her cooking was also enjoyed by those who attended camp meetings at Elam Heights in the 1970s and 80s. Mum was always happy to host anyone who wanted to stay longer after camp ended. When Harold was the youth group leader at church, It was not unusual to have up to 20 guests for dinner and a sleepover before or after an outing at very short notice. There were no mobile phones. Mum was always happy to cook more. Mum also enjoyed travelling and was keen to explore the world. Her sense of adventure took her to Switzerland as a 13-year-old girl and then later to Australia to marry Dad. With her family, Mum enjoyed travelling to Queensland, Victoria and South Australia, making many friends everywhere. We shared a special mother-daughter trip to Western Australia to see the wildflowers in bloom. We spent 2 weeks together on our road trip, which was great fun. Mum happily stayed in caravan parks and cabins to keep the expenses down. We visited Monkey Mia, where Mum felt very privileged to be chosen to assist with feeding the wild dolphins there. Mum also enjoyed several trips overseas, returning to Germany to see her father and siblings in 1988 after 28 years apart, which was very special. She enjoyed visiting friends and making new ones by attending conferences in Europe and other countries during the 1990s, including North America, South America, Africa and Brazil. Mum loved animals, particularly birds, so she and Dad planted native bird-attracting plants close to the house at Middle Dural so they could enjoy watching the many varieties of birds that visited. Mum would also put out some sunflower seeds and was delighted when some of the wild birds would eat from her hand. She would get very excited, calling out, "Come and see! Quick, look at this! Quick, take a photo!" After Mum's first stroke in October 2014, her mobility decreased, but she pushed herself to keep doing all the things she enjoyed, attending church, gardening, walks in the park with the grandchildren, and cooking. Her heart problems would make her breathless, but she would rest a bit and then push on. It was my privilege to attend medical appointments with Mum to listen properly and explain things again when we got home. I also spent time with her when she needed to be treated in hospital. She would always introduce me saying, "This is my daughter Sonya. She is my one and only daughter, so she is very precious." I was able to reply saying, "Lydia is my one and only mother and she is very special too." I loved hearing Mum's stories and how she shared them, herself and her faith with everyone. The nurses would say how they loved caring for Mum because she was so sweet and easy. Mum made a miraculous recovery from multi-organ failure in 2017, walking out of hospital with her four-wheel walker. Though she was much frailer, she continued enjoying church, family, friends and nature and was thankful for God for the bonus time given. She was always appreciative of messages sent expressing love and prayers offered, always saying, "Aren't people kind?" I am so grateful for the special bond we shared and the precious time we had together. I want to thank everyone who prayed for her, sent messages and who helped to keep Mum comfortable and happy at home where she wanted to be. Special thanks to Dad for doing her medication and breakfast, then caring throughout the day and night. Lone and Sandra were two special carers who also kept Mum comfortable. Our friend Geeta Remble and Lone's cooking was also enjoyed and appreciated. Mum's legacy is her faith, her love and her compassion. Our memories will continue to shine on and warm our hearts even though the sun has set on her earthly life. I hold fast to the promise of resurrection and the joy of being together forever when all things are made new. Mum could say, as King David did in Psalm 73:26, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." Only Mum's earthly heart failed. Her spiritual heart remains strong, and I trust that one day she will be restored to live forever with her Lord and Saviour Jesus and all his faithful ones. Thank you for being such a wonderful mother.